The mining bazaar on Cordral, 6 smelled of sulfur and hot metal. Lights flickered. Vents rattled. People shouted prices over the noise. Then the shouting changed. It turned cruel. A slim alien girl stumbled into the main lane. Her skin glowed soft green under the harsh lamps. Someone had torn her robe away. She tried to cover herself with her arms. Rotten fruit struck her shoulders. A cracked can bounced off the stones. Laughter rose like smoke. Thief! Spy, voices called. She was Leora Vesh, a junior xenobiologist. Last week she filed a report about strange shipping weights. Today she was the problem. Her knees shook. Her hair, silver white, braided for work, hung loose and dirty. She searched the crowd for a kind face. She saw none. Near the slag cranes stood Security Commander Jero Bryn. He watched with a thin smile. His coat was crisp. His boots were clean. He had planned this, Leora knew. He wanted her shamed. He wanted her quiet. He wanted everyone else afraid. Move. A guard barked, jabbing her with a shock baton. Walk the lane. She took a step. Another. The stones were sharp. The air burned her lungs. A vendor threw a fistful of blue peels. They stuck to her skin. The crowd roared. And then a man stepped out of the dust. Human. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Travel-worn jacket. Calm gray eyes. He did not stare at her body. He looked at the guards. He looked at the commander. His jaw set. That's enough, he said. His voice carried. People went quiet without meaning to. He shrugged off his coat. It was new leather, dark and heavy, lined with soft fabric. He wrapped it around Leora's shoulders with careful hands. He did not rush. He made sure it closed, made sure it covered, made sure she could breathe again. You're safe, he said, low so only she could hear. I've got you. Heat from the coat met the chill on her skin. Her breath steadied. Shame loosened its claws. Sir, a guard warned, this is public justice. Justice has rules, the human said. My name is Dane Mercer, Terran Charter. I'm invoking Confederacy Statute 47 Bravo. Formal review. Now. The crowd shifted. Someone muttered. Someone left. Commander Bryn's smile thinned. You have no standing here, Bryn said. Dane's eyes stayed cold. Try me. I have 3 magistrate codes and a recording drone on standby. Do you want to explain this to them? A beat of silence. Bryn's fingers twitched. He measured the risk. He decided to wait. Dane turned back to Leora. Can you walk? She nodded. Her voice failed, but her eyes did not. There was a spark there now. Not much. Enough. Stay close, he said. They moved through the market. People looked away. The guards did not block them. Bryn did not order it. Not yet. Dane's stride was steady. His presence made space. Leora clutched the coat and kept her head up. They reached a narrow service lane. Shadows hid the rust and the old posters. Dane paused there, between humming pipes. Tell me, he said softly. Leora swallowed. I study samples from deep shafts. I found trace elements that should not be here. Military-grade alloys in the ore. I flagged it. Commander Bryn runs cargo scans. Hours later, I was arrested. No hearing. No counsel. They dragged me outside. Smuggling, Dane said. Not a question. She nodded. He is trading rare minerals for weapons. I have proof. Data stones. But my quarters are watched. Dane looked toward the bazaar, then back at her. All right. We play smarter. She blinked. After all this, a stranger said we. It hit her harder than the thrown fruit. I'm Leora, she said. Dane, he answered. And Leora, keep the coat. A distant alarm hooped twice and cut off. It sounded like a warning no one wanted to hear again. Dane's eyes narrowed. He won't let this go? Bryn will try to box us in. Then we need to move, Leora said. Her voice had found steel. My friend has an empty bunk in the Civ sector. I can disguise there. Then the lab. The data stones are hidden in a specimen shell. Good, Dane said. We go back alleys. Head down. If anyone speaks, I answer. They slipped through maintenance corridors that smelled of oil and steam. Dane walked like he belonged. He nodded once at a drone tech. He checked corners without breaking stride. When a patrol clanged past, he pulled Leora into a recess and put his back between her and the light. The coat brushed her calves. The air tasted of iron. At a service lift, he tapped his wrist. A tiny green light blinked. Recorder's on, he said. If they try anything, the whole sector will see. Why help me? Leora asked. It came out small and honest. Because someone should, he said. Because we're human. He hesitated, then corrected himself. Because we're people. The lift shuttered down. Pipes slid past like ribs. Leora watched his face. It was tired, but clean with purpose. She felt a quiet settle inside her, the kind that lets a mind work again. The doors opened to a dim corridor. The Civ sector was close. Voices echoed. A child laughed somewhere, thin and brave. After we get you safe, Dane said, we retrieve the stones. Then we show them to the right eyes. We don't run. We make them answer. He glanced up at the ceiling cameras and smiled without warmth. Let's give Cordial 6 something it hasn't seen in a long time, he said. A fair fight. The Civ sector of Cordial 6 always looked half asleep. Flickering lamps buzzed. Pipes dripped. Distant turbines hummed like an endless growl under the streets. It was where miners' families lived, where no one asked questions, and where secrets could hide. Dane and Leora moved fast through the narrow alleys. The human's stride stayed confident, but his eyes scanned every door. He had the look of a man used to danger. Leora followed close, clutching the coat tight. The air smelled faintly of ozone and smoke. Her friend's apartment was a few levels up, behind a rusted service door. Leora keyed in the code with trembling fingers. The door opened with a hiss of stale air and silence. Safe, she whispered. For now. Inside was a single-room flat filled with scattered research notes, holoscreens, and half-disassembled tools. Dane stepped in, checked the corners, and sealed the door behind them. Leora finally let herself sit. The adrenaline faded, leaving only exhaustion. She touched the edge of the coat, feeling its warmth. It was still strange, how a simple human act had silenced an entire mob. You didn't have to help me, she said quietly. Dane knelt to inspect the window shutters. Maybe not. But that's what makes it matter. His tone was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He was already planning the next move. Tell me about these data stones, he said. Where exactly did you hide them? In my research locker, she replied. Deep Lab Sector, Access Zone B9. But it's heavily monitored now. Bryn's men will be watching for me. Dane leaned back against the wall. Then we'll make them think we belong there. Leora frowned. You sound confident. I've learned that confidence gets you through most locked doors, he said with a faint smile. The rest takes luck. For the first time since her humiliation, she almost laughed. It came out soft and uncertain, but real. Then the room's old comm unit crackled. A metallic voice hissed through static. Sector alert. Fugitive scientist sighted near lower wards. Security sweep authorized. All civilians remain indoors. Leora froze. Dane's expression hardened. They're closing in, he said. He's not wasting time. Bryn will search every block, Leora murmured. He controls half the patrols. Dane moved to the small table and spread a blank data pad. He tapped in codes with quick precision. Then we change how he sees us. I'll register us under new IDs, technician transfer and inspector assistant. The colony system's old. It won't cross-check for hours. She watched him work, amazed. You hack like a trained engineer. Let's just say Terran Extraction hires people who get results, he said. Now about you. That skin tone will get you caught in minutes. Any way to mask it? She nodded slowly. There's a temporary pigment compound in my friend's lab kit. It neutralizes light wavelengths. It'll make me look bluish, maybe vexery. Do it, Dane said. Then rest for 10 minutes. We move soon. While she mixed the compound, Dane stood at the window and looked out at the colony. Towers of metal vanished into yellow fog. Cargo drones drifted like lazy insects. Somewhere below, alarms pulsed red. He thought about what he'd seen, an alien woman stripped and broken while people laughed. It burned in his chest. He had fought pirates, smugglers, and corporate greed, but nothing had felt this personal. When Leora returned, her emerald glow was gone, replaced by a faint bluish hue. Her hair was darkened with a gray tint. She wore a spare jumpsuit from the closet. How do I look? She asked. Like someone the scanners won't notice, he said. Perfect. She smiled faintly. You humans and your half compliments. He allowed himself a small grin. Full compliment, then. You look brave. For a moment, silence filled the room. Warm, human silence. Then he straightened. We'll go through the utility tunnels, he said. Less chance of patrols. I'll handle the credentials at the lab gate. And if Bryn finds us, then we find out how fast humans can run on this rock. Her eyes met his. You joke, but I can feel you're serious underneath. Serious doesn't mean hopeless. Dane said. It means ready. They stepped back into the corridor. The door sealed behind them with a soft click. Somewhere far above, thunder rolled, artificial, from the furnaces. It made the floor tremble. The Civ sector swallowed them as they disappeared into the shadows, one human and one alien. Two fugitives carrying the first spark of rebellion this colony had seen in years. And in that spark, something began to grow. Not just courage, but hope. The maintenance tunnels beneath Cordrel, 6 stretched like metal veins under the colony. Steam hissed through cracked pipes. Warning lights blinked red, then faded to black. The air was damp and heavy, carrying the taste of rust. Dane led the way, his boots echoing softly. He had memorized the service map in minutes, marking each turn in his head. Leora followed, her voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure this leads to the research sector? 80% sure, he said. The other 20 is faith. Faith in what? He smiled without turning. In human stubbornness. Despite the danger, she found herself smiling too. His calm felt contagious. The coat still hung around her shoulders, oversized but comforting. Each time it brushed her skin, she remembered that moment in the marketplace, when one human had chosen to stand between her and cruelty. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. A maintenance drone whirred past, its sensors sweeping the dark. Dane pulled Leora against the wall until it passed. He could feel her heartbeat through the coat. Fast, frightened, but alive. Once it was gone, she whispered, I can't believe anyone would risk so much for me. You expose corruption, he said simply. That's not a crime. It's what keeps people free. She looked at him then, her disguised blue face faintly illuminated by the tunnel lights. Do humans always talk like heroes? He shrugged. Only when someone's watching. They climbed a narrow ladder that led into the sublevel beneath the research district. Above them, faint hums of machinery and voices echoed. Dane checked his wrist pad. A small holographic map flickered. Labs 2 corridors up, he said. We'll need to pass a checkpoint. Leora adjusted the gray cap over her darkened hair. I'll act like I belong there. Quiet and busy. Assistants always look tired and invisible. Good, Dane said. I'll handle the talking. When they emerged into the upper hall, the change was startling. The air was cooler, sterile. White lights glowed over glass panels and scanner doors. Signs flashed warnings in 5 languages. 2 guards stood near the entry gate. They looked bored, not alert, the kind of boredom that came from thinking no one would ever challenge them. Dane walked straight toward them, confident and steady. Special Consultant Mercer, he announced, flashing a hollow badge that shimmered with false authority. Confederacy oversight. The guards straightened. We weren't informed of any inspection. Of course not, Dane said smoothly. That's why it's effective. He held their gaze long enough for them to doubt themselves. Then one nodded and opened the gate. Proceed, sir. Leora followed, keeping her eyes low. Inside the lab sector, glass walls revealed workstations filled with glowing instruments. Most were empty at this hour. The few technicians present barely glanced up. My locker's down that corridor, Leora whispered. Section B9. They turned the corner and froze. A tall alien woman stood near the lockers, her pale skin glowing under the lights. Her name tag read Elra Fun. Leora's breath caught. My old assistant, she murmured. Elra turned, surprise flashing in her eyes before it hardened into calculation. Consultant Mercer, she said smoothly. What brings Confederacy oversight here so late? Preliminary inspection, Dane replied. Routine compliance check. I'll need access to all personal research lockers. Elra's smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Though, I was told Dr. Vesha's locker was sealed. Leora kept her face neutral. Dane said, that's precisely why I need to open it. Elra hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Dane to notice. Very well, she said finally, entering a code on the console. As the locker hissed open, Leora stepped forward. Her heart sank. It was empty, completely stripped. Elra folded her arms. Strange. Perhaps the good doctor misplaced her belongings. Leora looked up, her voice calm but edged. You helped Bryn, didn't you? You took the data stones. Elra's expression didn't change, but the faint twitch of her jaw was enough. I suggest you leave, consultant. Security will want to verify your credentials. Dane's hand drifted near his utility belt. No need for that, he said coolly. We've seen what we came for. As he guided Leora toward the exit, he whispered, "She's working with Bryn. But she slipped. The stones are still close. Maybe hidden in a lab transport." Leora nodded, anger flickering beneath her calm. "Then we find them before Bryn does." Outside, the corridor alarms pulsed once, faint and distant. Dane's gut tightened. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before the trap closed. He glanced at Leora. "Time to see if humans can improvise as well as we brag." She smirked, even through fear. "Then let's prove it." Together, they ran deeper into the labyrinth of steel and light. Two fugitives chasing truth through the cold heart of corruption. The corridors of the research complex stretched long and bright, sterile and silent. The hum of machines echoed like a heartbeat through the steel. Dane and Leora walked quickly, blending in among the few late-shift workers still moving between labs. Every step felt borrowed, every second stolen. Leora's disguise was beginning to fade. The pigment mask flickered at the edges of her neck, letting faint streaks of green show through the blue tint. Dane noticed, but said nothing. She was already tense, eyes darting to every shadow, scanning for patrols or cameras. They turned a corner and stopped. Ahead, a wide window revealed a secure storage bay filled with sealed crates, containment pods, and transport modules waiting for inspection. Two security drones floated lazily between the rows. "That's it," Leora whispered. "That's where the stolen cargo is being prepped. Bryn must have hidden the data stones inside one of those pods." Dane leaned closer to the glass, studying the markings. Each crate bore serial codes tied to mineral exports. If Bryn's shipping weapons through or containers, one of these has to hold your evidence. He pulled out his wrist pad and began tapping rapidly. The holographic interface reflected blue light on his face. "I can trigger a false quarantine alert. It'll force the drones to return to charging docks for safety. Gives us 2 minutes." Leora blinked. "You can do that from here?" He smirked. "Let's say I've opened worse doors than this." A few quick keystrokes later, red warning lights flashed above the bay. The drones beeped, turned, and drifted toward a sealed alcove. The moment they vanished, Dane motioned. "Now." They slipped through the side door. The air smelled of ozone and oil. Leora's bare feet made no sound as she moved between the crates, scanning each label. Her fingers trembled slightly. She hated that Bryn's lies had turned her careful research into a crime. "This one," she said finally, pointing at a small gray pod with mismatched serial numbers. "The code doesn't match the format." Dane knelt and pried the latch open with his multi-tool. Inside were mineral samples, packed in clear resin, but between the layers lay something else. A cluster of data stones the size of his thumb, glowing faintly violet. "Got them," he said, relief flashing in his eyes. Leora reached out but froze when a soft click echoed through the bay. The sound of a weapon's safety being released. "Well," a voice drawled behind them. "Looks like the thief brought a friend." Commander Bryn stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 armed guards. His expression was pure satisfaction. Dane rose slowly, hands raised halfway. "You've gone to a lot of trouble for a few rocks," he said. "They're more valuable than you understand." "Human," Bryn replied. "Proof that could end my career, or start a far more profitable one." He gestured toward Leora. "And you, Dr. Vesh, could have lived quietly. Instead, you had to play hero." Leora's voice was steady. "You disgraced the Confederacy. You endangered lives for credits." Bryn laughed. Big words from someone covered in garbage a few hours ago. Dane's jaw tightened. "You enjoy that, don't you? Breaking people." Bryn shrugged. "Fear keeps order. You humans should understand that." "Humans understand balance," Dane said quietly. "And we understand when it's gone too far." Without warning, he slammed his wrist pad against the crate beside him. Sparks exploded, lights flickered, and the bay filled with smoke. The security alarms wailed. "Run," he shouted. Leora grabbed the data stones and dove behind a cargo unit as energy bolts ripped through the haze. Dane rolled across the floor, pulling a small EMP beacon from his belt. He hurled it toward the doorway. The flash of blue light stunned the guards' weapons, shorting them out. Bryn cursed, stumbling back. "Get them. Now." Leora and Dane sprinted toward the maintenance hatch on the far wall. Bryn fired blindly, the shots searing the air near their heads. The metal hatch jammed halfway open. Leora shoved it with all her strength. Dane pushed from behind, forcing it just wide enough for them to slip through. The tunnel beyond was narrow and dark. They ran without looking back, the echo of boots and shouts fading behind them. Finally, when the sound was gone, they stopped to breathe. Leora leaned against the wall, clutching the glowing stones. Her chest rose and fell quickly. "You're insane," she said between breaths. "Probably," Dane admitted. "But we're alive. That counts for something." She laughed weakly, half from relief, half from disbelief. "You risked your life for me again." He looked at her and smiled faintly. "That's what humans do, remember?" Her eyes softened. "And that's what makes you dangerous." For the first time since her arrest, she felt something stronger than fear, admiration, hope. But Dane's expression darkened. "We can't stop now. Bryn won't rest until he silences us both. We need to get this evidence off-world." Leora nodded. "There's only one way out, the shuttle bay." "Then that's where we go," he said, tightening his grip on the EMP beacon. Behind them, faint alarms began again. This time closer, louder, angrier. They exchanged a look. No words. No hesitation. Then they ran. Together, the tunnels opened into the upper decks of Cordral SIXS Skyport, a sprawling maze of steel, neon lights, and echoing announcements. Cargo drones drifted overhead like slow-moving stars. Airships hissed as they fueled, their thrusters glowing a dull orange. Dane and Leora stepped out of the maintenance shaft into chaos. The main concourse buzzed with merchants, miners, and transport pilots shouting over one another. No one noticed the two figures slipping through the crowd, one tall human in a scuffed jacket, the other a disguised alien clutching a small satchel close to her chest. Inside that satchel were the stolen data stones, proof of Bryn's corruption. "Keep your head down," Dane murmured. "I'm trying," Leora whispered, tightening the coat around her. "But the pigment mask is fading. I can feel it. Then we better move faster." They weaved through a line of passengers, toward the far side of the terminal where a cluster of shuttles waited for off-world clearance. Dane's plan was simple: reach a neutral transport, transmit the data to Confederacy Command, and disappear before Bryn could catch them. But Bryn wasn't far behind. High above, security drones circled like silent hawks, their scanners sweeping across the crowd. A sudden voice boomed over the speakers. "Attention, all personnel. Fugitive suspects identified. Human male and female Vexery operative. Proceed with caution and report any sightings immediately." Leora's pulse spiked. "They've updated the description. They know." "Doesn't matter," Dane said. "We just have to reach Bay 12. They moved faster. People turned as the announcement repeated. A few miners stared too long. One even pointed. Dane caught the movement in his periphery and grabbed Leora's hand. "Run." They sprinted through the terminal as alarms blared. Red lights washed over the glass walls, casting everything in emergency glow. A drone swooped down. Dane fired his EMP beacon, the blast shorting its circuits. Sparks showered the air as the machine spiraled into the floor. "Keep going," he yelled. Leora ducked under a railing, darting past a group of startled travelers. Ahead, the sign for Bay 12 flashed in bright blue. The docking bay doors were open. Just beyond them, a small transport shuttle prepped for departure. But between them and the exit stood Commander Bryn. He blocked the passage, his uniform torn and scorched from the lab explosion. Two armored guards flanked him. His weapon gleamed cold silver. "End of the line," Bryn sneered. "You've made quite the mess, Dr. Vesh. And you, human, you could have walked away rich. I would have paid double whatever you're being offered." "I'm not for sale," Dane said flatly. Bryn laughed. "Everyone's for sale. You'll learn that, if you live long enough." He raised his blaster. The first shot slammed into the wall near Dane's head. The human ducked, dragging Leora behind a cargo crate. Energy bolts seared through the air, lighting the bay like fireworks. "Stay down," he muttered. "I'll draw them off." "You'll get killed," she hissed. "Not if you run when I tell you." He pulled a flash charge from his belt, tossed it over the crate, and detonated it. A burst of white light filled the bay. Bryn's guard staggered, blinded. Dane broke cover, tackling one to the floor. The other fired wildly. The shot grazed his shoulder, burning through the fabric of his jacket. Leora screamed his name, but forced herself to move, just as he'd told her. She sprinted toward the shuttle, clutching the satchel. Behind her, Dane wrestled the guard's weapon away and fired twice. Both guards went down. Bryn roared and charged forward, swinging his heavy blaster like a club. The impact knocked Dane backward. Pain flared in his ribs, but he gritted his teeth and swung back. The two men crashed into a control console, sparks flying as systems overloaded. "Run, Leora!" Dane shouted again. She reached the shuttle ramp and slapped the access panel. The hatch opened. Inside, the pilot, a young Andari trader, stared wide-eyed. "What in the stars?" "No time to explain," Leora said breathlessly. "We need launch clearance now." Dane stumbled toward the ramp, blood trickling down his arm. Bryn raised his weapon for a final shot, but Leora turned, eyes blazing. She hurled one of the data stones directly at him. It struck the blaster's power cell, shattering on impact. The weapon exploded in a flash of blue fire. Bryn screamed, thrown backward into the smoke. Dane pulled himself into the shuttle as the hatch sealed shut. "Go," he barked. Engines roared. The ship lifted from the bay, shaking as emergency sirens howled. Through the viewport, Leora watched the colony shrink beneath them, its towers glowing faintly in the storm clouds. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence. Then Leora turned to Dane, tears shining in her eyes. "You saved me again." He looked at her, exhausted but smiling faintly. "You'd have done the same." She reached for his hand. "Maybe, but I wouldn't have made it without you." He squeezed her fingers gently. "We're not done yet. We still have to deliver this evidence." Outside, the stars began to rise over Cordril, 6, cold, distant, and waiting. And for the first time in a long while, hope followed them into the dark. The shuttle streaked through the blackness of space, its engines glowing faint blue against the void. The hum of the thrusters filled the silence between Dane and Leora. She sat across from him, clutching the satchel to her chest as if it were her heartbeat. The data stones, the proof of Bryn's smuggling, his lies, his cruelty, gleamed faintly through the fabric. For a moment, it felt as if they'd escaped. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, distant and safe. But the feeling didn't last. "Navigation's locked," the Andari pilot muttered, eyes wide as the console flickered red. "Something's jamming our course alignment." Dane stood instantly, wincing at the burn on his shoulder. "Can you override it?" "Not from here. There's an external signal, a tracking beacon. Someone's latched onto us." Leora's blood ran cold. "Bryn." "Impossible," Dane said, moving to the cockpit. He was in the blast. No one could have survived that. "Humans say that," Leora replied quietly. "But people like him always survive." Before he could answer, a sharp tone cut through the cabin, an incoming transmission. The pilot glanced nervously at Dane. "It's coming from the surface, encoded Confederacy channel." Dane's jaw tightened. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, revealing Commander Bryn's burned and furious face. One side of his uniform was torn, his eye ringed in soot, but his smile was still there, cold and proud. "Running doesn't suit you, Mercer," he growled. "Neither does betrayal." Dane folded his arms. "You're broadcasting on a military frequency, Bryn. That alone will get you court-martialed." "Oh, you still think the Confederacy cares?" Bryn sneered. "You think they'll believe a human contractor and a disgraced alien scientist over a decorated security commander? You'll be ghosts before they even read your report." Leora stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "We have the evidence. The stones are encrypted. Once we reach the relay station, the Confederacy will see everything." Bryn laughed, a deep, ugly sound. "You won't reach it." He nodded to someone off-screen. "Fire." An explosion rocked the shuttle. Alarms screamed as the hull shuddered. The pilot fought to stabilize the craft. "They've got a pursuit drone." Starboard wings hit. "Brace," Dane shouted, grabbing Leora as the ship spun violently. Metal groaned. Gravity vanished. For a brief moment, they were weightless. Then the emergency thrusters fired, slamming them back down. "Landing systems offline," the pilot cried. "We're dropping." The planet below filled the viewport, a barren moon covered in frozen plains and shattered rock. Dane gritted his teeth. "Aim for the ridge. It'll absorb the impact." The shuttle plunged through thin atmosphere. Fire streaked across the windows. Leora clung to Dane, feeling the heat and the tremor of the hull. The crash came like thunder, metal tearing, glass shattering. Then silence. Smoke filled the cabin. The pilot was unconscious but breathing. Dane forced the hatch open, coughing as cold air bit into his lungs. The world outside was gray and endless, the wind sharp enough to cut. "Alive?" he asked, turning to Leora. She nodded weakly, her face pale beneath the fading pigment. For now. He helped her out of the wreck. The shuttle lay half buried in snow and ice, flames dying under the wind. Above them, a small black shape hovered, a Confederacy beacon drone, descending slowly. Leora's eyes widened. "That's a distress responder. It must have picked up the crash. Or Bryn sent it to finish the job," Dane said grimly. He reached for his weapon, checking the charge. "Either way, we hold the stones. That makes us the threat." She shivered, clutching the satchel tighter. "We can't transmit from here. The storm will block any signal." "Then we climb," he said, pointing toward the ridge. "High ground. Line of sight. We send the data straight to Confederacy Command." The climb was brutal. The wind tore at their clothes, snow slicing across their faces. Dane's shoulder bled through his jacket, but he kept moving. Leora stumbled once, and he caught her hand, pulling her upright. "You should have left me," she said breathlessly. He shook his head. "I don't leave people behind." When they reached the top, the view was endless, a sea of white under a violet sky. Dane pulled out his wrist pad, connecting the data stones. A faint signal flickered. Almost there. Then the drone appeared over the ridge, sleek, black, and humming with energy. Bryn's voice crackled through its speakers. "You never learn, do you, human? You should have let her die in that market." Dane raised his blaster. "Maybe, but then I wouldn't get to do this." He fired. The shot hit the drone's stabilizer, sending it spinning. Leora seized the chance, activating the transmitter. The signal pulsed once, twice, then locked. A green light flashed on the wrist pad. Data upload complete. Bryn's furious voice was the last thing they heard before the drone exploded. "Enjoy your victory, Mercer. It's your last." The explosion lit the ridge in blue fire. The blast knocked them backward into the snow. When the silence returned, the sky above shimmered with stars again. The data was sent. The truth was free. And for the first time, Leora believed they might actually win. When consciousness returned, it came with the sting of cold air and the weight of silence. Leora opened her eyes to a pale horizon. The storm had passed. Snow stretched endlessly in every direction, glittering under the faint light of Cordrell's distant sun. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she saw Dane lying beside her, half buried in the drift. "Dane," she whispered, shaking him. He groaned softly, eyes fluttering open. "Still alive, huh?" Relief washed through her like heat. "Barely. You took most of the blast." "Good," he muttered with a faint grin. "I'd hate to let you do all the work." She laughed, the sound trembling between tears and exhaustion. They had survived. Against every odds, they had survived. The wrist pad beside them blinked with a soft green pulse. The transmission complete, the data stone's evidence already in Confederacy hands. The truth was free now, uncontainable. Dane pushed himself to sit up, wincing as he touched his bandaged shoulder. If Bryn's still out there, he'll find nothing left to fight for. Leora nodded. "You ended it." He looked at her, eyes steady despite the exhaustion. "No, we ended it." They sat there for a while, staring at the quiet world around them. The moon sky was tinted violet, its wind soft now. It felt strange, peaceful, after everything they had endured. Leora finally spoke. "When I came to Cordrell, I wanted to study life beneath the soil. I thought science was the highest calling, truth without blood or politics. I was wrong. Truth always costs something," Dane said. "The trick is deciding if it's worth the price." She studied him, his face drawn but calm, his expression steady in the cold light. "You paid more than I ever asked you to." He smiled faintly. "That's humanity for you. We do stupid, brave things when they matter." For a moment, silence returned, comfortable this time. Leora reached out, resting her hand over his. His skin was warm against the cold air. "You changed my world, Dane Mercer." "And you changed mine," he said simply. In the distance, a shadow crossed the snow, a Confederacy patrol shuttle descending from orbit. The insignia gleamed silver in the weak light. They had come to retrieve the survivors of the crash and verify the transmission. "They found us," Leora whispered. "Good," Dane replied. "Means the message reached them." As the shuttle landed, the wind whipped their hair, sending flakes swirling around them. Two officers emerged, scanning the wreckage. One of them, A tall human with a polished uniform saluted sharply. Specialist Mercer, Dr. Vesh. You're under protective custody by order of Confederacy Command. The charges against you are null. Commander Bryn has been detained. Leora blinked. Already. The officer nodded. Your data transmission contained encrypted trade manifests, weapon contracts, and personal communications. He'll spend the rest of his life answering for them. Dane exhaled slowly, letting the words sink in. It was over. When they boarded the rescue shuttle, Leora looked down through the viewport. The frozen ridge faded beneath them, the wreckage no more than a dark scar against the pale snow. For a moment, she saw their reflections in the glass, two faces, side by side, marked by fire and hope. You know, Dane said quietly, I was only supposed to be here to negotiate a mining contract. Leora smiled. And instead, you rewrote the history of a colony. Guess I overachieved. She leaned against his shoulder, closing her eyes. No, you just reminded everyone what being human truly means. As the shuttle rose through the thin clouds, sunlight finally broke over the horizon, a faint, golden line across the cold violet sky. Cordial, 6 began to glow beneath it, as if waking from a long, cruel night. For the first time since her exile began, Leora let herself believe in peace. Not the kind written in treaties or spoken by officials, but the quiet kind, born when courage meets compassion, when truth is stronger than fear. And as the light touched them both, Dane looked out into the stars and smiled. Let's go home, he said. And somewhere beyond the fading world below, the galaxy answered with silence, pure, endless, and free.